been glowing about the Soundcore Motion Plus for a long time. I've been calling it the pound for pound world champion because in terms of sheer value, what it can do at the price of £80, I think it's been the best value speaker I've had so far. And blow me, end of 2020, along comes the Motion Boom. So they're not messing about, they're calling it the Boom. If there's not a lot of boom, you're going to be complaining. So they've gone right ahead, they're calling it the Motion Boom. Of course, we're expecting some sort of boombox, but with the detail and the high-end precision and clarity that we've been getting from the Soundcore Motion Plus. Well, you might not have, but I have. Now, the first thing to say is price point, the same, £80. £80 the Motion Plus, £80 for the Motion Boom. So looking really interesting. I'm going to quickly give you a quick overview. As you can see, it is considerably larger than the Motion Plus. In terms of actual weights, we're talking 1 kilo for the Motion Plus. We're talking 1.5 kilos for the Boom. So it's not like it's the Motion Plus, but now it gives us a boom. It's a different speaker. When it comes to Soundcore Motion, you know, we were saying, oh, a bit of high fidelity, you know, the Motion Plus value and a speaker geared to someone who wants to do a little bit of discerning listening, where there's a bit, you know, they even went to town and gave us tweeters when we never got tweeters in this sort of speaker. Tweeters nicely angled out to the sides, give a nice spread of detail. Still got our passive radiators and a couple of woofers. And even better than that, aptX codec. I have to tell you, we have SBC on the Motion Boom. So maybe they're really targeting the JBL type of boombox speaker. JBL can charge you £280, still give you a basic SBC codec, but this is £80, so we'd expect an SBC codec. I also have to say, you know, black is not the greatest colour, but you know, it's quite a nice design. It's not bad. I like the way it's angled up to give you a nice spread, and to the sides, a bit of thought. The feel and the look, this to me is very much like the cheap Chinese speakers that we've been getting. So not a lot about design, more about trying to give you value for money. Look, I've still got a bit of plastic on there. I'm going to take those off. Value for money in terms of you're probably not looking for, you know, a detailed sound and something you're going to listen to for hours. You just want to go boom, boom, boom. It's going to be by the pool and that's you know, and it's more background music that's in your face than a really good, you know, indoor listen. When you look at the marketing blurb, it does say portable Bluetooth speaker for outdoors and camping. That's, to me, that was quite a weird way to market it for outdoors and for camping. Already that might put you off for a nice listen indoors. However, titanium drivers, base up technology, IPX7, so it is waterproof. You can drop it in a pool, not just for camping. Can take it to the beach or can take it to your hotel, go by the swimming pool, drop it in. You should be all right, as long as it's not more than a meter deep. 24 hours playtime. Of course, 24 hours, this sort of thing is normally at very low volume. Yes, it comes with a Soundcore app. Built-in handle. They're actually talking about that as a feature, built-in handle. Personally, you know, I'm not sure if you really needed it, but for camping, I suppose you would. But I think to be quite honest, I think it's a bit ugly. You know, it's very much a cheap feel, whereas I never really thought of this as having a cheap look or a cheap feel, but very tinny kind of plastic, thin, not rugged type of plastic there. And a portable Bluetooth speaker for outdoors and camping. Other specs you probably, well, first of all, just to show you, there isn't a lot going on here. There is a multi-function button in the middle for skipping and pausing and all that. There is a volume up, a volume down. We've got a bass up button, so you don't have to just do it in the app. There is a dedicated button. You do have a dedicated Bluetooth button here, and power button, and a stereo pairing button there. So if you wanted to pair them, no need for the app, like with some people, like JBL for stereo, right there on the speaker. Now, it's just a little flap. First thing I have to tell you is there's no auxiliary input. They have gone on this one. But what we do have is USB-C input for charging, and we have USB-A out. So you can use this as a power bank. It does come with a USB-A to USB-C lead. It does come with a pamphlet, which, as you see, I have not bothered opening at this point. It was ready to update straight out of the box. Also surprised me, well, the same for camping, might not be a surprise. It's a big old battery, 10,000 milliamp hours. So 37 watt hours, you know, in real spec, 37 watt hours battery life here. Well, battery capacity, 25 watt hours on the, okay, smaller Motion Plus. They are both Bluetooth 5. I've already talked about the codecs. They are both usable as a phone speaker. They are both rated 30 watts. And surprisingly, although they claim that the Motion Plus went from 50 hertz to 40 kilohertz, 40 kilohertz, as I've mentioned many times, absolutely ridiculous. Quite reasonable, 60 hertz to 20 kilohertz. 60 hertz, it doesn't, in the old days that would have been a boombox, but these days 60 hertz, But however, I did see it actually, for the first time ever, I think, for a speaker like this, actually mentioned plus or minus 3 dB. So they're actually saying flat 60 to 20 kilohertz, which would be pretty impressive. So, of course, having seen that, I have to measure the frequency response. So I'm going to measure the frequency response. I'm also going to compare it to the Motion Plus, just to give you a handle on what we're going to expect down the line as we listen to our sound clips.
Quick look at the app. Settings allow you to turn on and off the voice prompt, change the auto power, update the firmware, disconnect, can play and pause from the app. The volume is showing here. You can change the volume. What I want to show you is the EQ modes. So default mode is what they call Soundcore Signature mode. On the Motion Plus, they called it the bass up mode. And you also get a voice mode, treble mode, and a balance mode. Ooh. And as you can see, you can turn the extra bass on and off, back on. Now, they're showing you a flat line. Wouldn't that be unbelievable if it really was a flat line? So, I'm not really interested in voice. Treble obviously is a treble lift. What I'm interested in is the default Soundcore Signature mode and the balanced mode. And I'm going to set a custom mode. I've been messing about, but the custom mode I'm using is what I'm calling the original there. In default mode, this is the bass up mode, and they call it the signature mode. As you can see, I find this remarkably flat, given its price point, given a speaker that's marketed as a boombox. That is really flat. In fact, surprisingly flat at 40% and lower volumes, because there's no bass adjustment there. Doesn't look particularly heavy bass, and doesn't look particularly that deep, just looking at these frequency responses. As I always say, this is just an indicator, because these speakers do weird things in real time, and actual tracks can be very different. So default mode is bass up mode. They say it's a bass boost, so it's going to be even flatter if you turn off bass up. Oh no, hang on a second. It's actually a bass cut with bass up off. So bass up is normal bass, bass up off is a bass cut. Not just bass cut, you can see at the high end, it's actually boosted. So bass up default, you got your bass and it's quite flat. You turn off bass up off mode, you lose your bass from around 160 hertz, and you've gained a big peak around the 12 kilohertz mark. There is the balance mode. So balance mode is going to be even more balanced. Oh no, hang on a second. It looks like bass up off, but without the boost at the high end. So even less balanced. Signature mode, balance mode, we're losing at the high end, and we're losing some bass. So how does it compare against the default mode on the Motion Plus? There is the Motion Plus. You can see straight off the bat, the ultimate headroom in terms of bass on the Motion Plus is lower than the Motion Boom. And whereas there is no bass adjustment for lower volumes on the Boom, there's massive bass adjustment, the other extreme, on the Motion Plus. It levels out around 70%. And by the time you hit 100%, you've lost a big dollop of bass. Or is it still there on the Motion Boom? I always use Motion Plus in my own personal custom mode. And I have EQ'd the Motion Boom in custom, but there isn't the headroom that I can see. I'm still playing around with EQ, but my current EQ that I'm going to be using in this video, I have got a big boost at the high end, and you can hear whether that's right or wrong when I play my clips. So Boom Custom, Motion Plus Custom, it's looking promising for the bass, way more bass as you got the volume scale on the Boom compared to the Motion Plus. All you can say is the Motion Plus maintains mids in the higher volumes, recessed on the Motion Boom, as far as these measurements go.
So it's really nice to see the bass goes up in line, in a linear fashion with the volume up. On my JBL Extreme 3 video, you will see how at 80% it hits hard limit. Any increase in volume, you get no more in terms of bass. But this, you do get an increase in bass all the way up. And, I mean, astonishing flat, I thought, but with a normal kind of looking bass for something that's called boom. Look, I didn't call it a boom. They went and called it the Motion Boom, and if you don't get any boom from this speaker, you're going to be asking for your money back. In terms of the Motion Plus, there is some limiting going on. As you get to the higher volumes, you're not getting very much increase, tiny bit of increase in the bass, but I would say it's not a linear fashion. So, whereas the actual frequency response stays the same all the way up the volume scale, that's not always a good thing, because if you look up equal loudness curves, our ability to hear different frequencies changes as it goes up, as it gets louder, which means you normally get some adjustment at the lower volumes, so it still sounds the same as the higher volumes, even though the actual frequency response is the same. So we normally get definitely some big bass boost, and there should be some high-end lift as well, but there normally isn't. But you certainly want a lift in the low end, and there isn't. It stays the same. In fact, quite in the way the JBL Extreme 3 actually played. Already, no bass adjustment. You're going to be asking yourself, then how do they compare at low volume? So my low volume test is 40%. I'm going to do both default modes. Yeah, they're always saying to me, "Al, you play your custom EQ, but play it in default mode." That's fairer, isn't it? The point about the Motion Plus is that when you go into the custom EQ, and I only use EQ when it can be embedded into the firmware, into the speaker itself. I don't use software EQ as in on my device, where it has to be from, you have to do it again on every other device you go to. So it changes it considerably when you go to custom mode. That's why I use custom mode over default mode, which isn't that good on this particular speaker. On this speaker, I'm going to do some EQing, but it's very early stages for my EQing, and I have to say there doesn't seem to be the headroom there for the EQ, in that I'm not improving the sound. It just gets a bit wonky if you try to do too much with the EQ. Although certainly the bass headroom is there, but I'm erring on the side of cautious in getting a reasonable sound, even to the extent where I really push the upper bass on the Motion Plus, because to my ears that improves the sound. I've actually come down a tiny notch, -1 on the upper bass here, and up with the lower bass, as you'll see. So I'm doing default, and then custom versus custom. 40% volume. It's a low volume test. Watch out for the actual volumes. I play them at equal volumes.
I was born to be free. There's a fire in me, melting at the bottom of the sea. It was a beautiful thing. All these memories trying to hold me back, but they can't see. I was born to be free. I've been looking for something that haunts me all night. I've been staying up hours until the sunrise. Just so casual, always living the same life. I don't really mind, but I just need to take some time to get away. And I, 'cause I'm so bloody tired, yeah. something that haunts me all night. I've been staying up hours until the sunrise. It's so casual, always living the same life. I don't really mind, but I just need to take some time to get away.
For me, it's the motion boom is a clear winner at low volumes, because this has always been a bit muddy at low volumes, whether it's in custom EQ or in default mode. It's very bass heavy. There's a lot of bass adjustment at the lower volumes. Too bass heavy makes it sound muddy. It certainly goes a hell of a lot deeper. I can hear that already, but it sounds a bit more balanced. It's, you know, it's not the clearest of speakers. We're going to get to that as we go up the volumes, but in this speaker against this speaker, in low volume, for me, clear winner. But that may not be a huge shock, because most speakers can beat this, you know, because it is quite muddy at these quite low volumes, 40%. So let's go up to around 65% volume.
Captivating, and you know it's true. Sent a smile and you started to make your way through the crowd. It grew so loud, you and I didn't even care. I've loved you since I met you. Did I ever tell you that? I tried to push you out, you bullied. I fell hard so fast.
Causing disruption. The police can't even stop it. If they try, we gotta jump in. Now I hope you do not mind me watching from behind. It's you I like, it's you I like. I'm chasing one more time. This is party life. Chasing Flores in the building, and they keep on moving to the rhythm we love. Hold every woman with the girls you show. Now look at hers, look at hers.
So in default mode, Motion Boom, Motion Plus, you can see Motion Plus is slanted towards upper bass and stronger mids, while the Motion Boom has a boost around the 15 kilohertz mark. Turns to absolute bass. Motion Boom 8 dB up at 60 hertz, 14 dB up at 50 hertz. The difference in the lower bass is massive, and yet the Motion Plus is still stronger in upper bass, down to about 100 hertz anyway. Motion Boom Custom, Motion Plus Custom. Custom mode now, the Motion Boom, even 80 hertz, is stronger than the Motion Plus. As we already know, way stronger in the deep bass. I have tuned my custom mode with a bit of kick at the high end. Try and get some clarity out of the Motion Boom, which is where the Motion Plus excels, especially with its heavier mids.
So, as you got the volume scales, the differences are not as stark as at the lower volumes where it really doesn't shine at all, the Motion Plus. In default mode, it sounds like you've had the bass cut. When you hear it in an A-B comparison with the Motion Boom, it sounds like I've turned off the bass. I haven't. That is default mode. That is so-called bass up mode on the Motion Plus. The Motion Boom slaughters the Motion Plus in terms of lower bass and proper deep bass. That is playing down to 50 hertz. You know, running off a little bit, but it's there. It's really there. It really does play low volume. However, it's still winning out. It's still the mids and the clarity and the highs, especially on the vocals, is there on the Motion Plus. You can already hear it's not quite right. The mids are a bit recessed. The vocals don't pop. I mean, it sounds okay. It's all about the lower end, the full, deep, rounded low end. And it's not particularly detailed, but it's quite impressive for an £80 speaker. You know, in a package like that, it's quite impressive. I'm not saying it's sounding like it's the greatest speaker of all time at this point. It's still up for debate. We're going to have to go louder. We'll have to go around 85%. So that's a decent volume, 85%.
Be some bad wishes from people that don't really understand the feeling that we have. There's gonna be some bad wishes from people that don't really understand it's that we have. Oh baby, keep loving, keep loving me just like you do it, like you do it, like you Hips don't lift, so we keep growing just like we do it, like you do it, like you.
Don't settle if he doesn't deserve you. I don't need you, I don't want you. I'm not a liability. If I'm too much, you're not enough. So here you go, my love for free.
So yeah, I mean, default mode versus default mode, we can almost throw the Motion Plus away. The difference is huge. I mean, there's no, the bass is, you know, it's like you cut off the bass. This is a big full sound, and the bass, you know, default mode is not great on that. And if I'm only playing default modes, I'll be throwing that away and saying, this is my new speaker. However, when you custom EQ and you get to these higher volumes, so I'm using my custom IQ here, IQ, I'm using my custom EQ here, which not everybody likes, but I personally like it because you are free to use any custom mode you want. I'm just using mine. Then the difference is close, almost surprisingly close. And then the choice is clear. You can have really impressive, deep, satisfying, warm bass. From the speaker this size, it's impressive. It's genuinely hitting those, you know, around the 50 hertz, the genuine deep, low bass. It's just not there on the Motion Plus, but you've got a full mids, you've got vocals that pop, you've got details you can pick out if you're listening for your tracks and you're listening to things going on. It's there, the detail is there, the clarity is there, and it's not. I mean, it's not like there's no detail and there's no clarity, it's just a bit dull. Certainly the mids sound a bit recessed, almost like there's a hole in the sound, even when I go to my custom EQ. So it's clear. What's more important to you, low, deep bass or detail and full mids, full detailed mids. So what is the ultimate headroom? What happens when you go to max? Because this has really been impressive how loud it goes with custom EQ. At maximum volume, can it still do what it's been doing at the lower volumes? 100% volume.
Now you're gone, I'm great. Oh, oh. I never thought I'd say it. Yeah, yeah. I'm light on my feet. It's like I'm a better me. V2.0 or 3. Yeah, yeah. A better me. I only knew what I knew of love from you. It was so one-sided. I only knew one love till it went away. Now I know a little more 'cause I found real love and it's not one-sided. Now I know a little more and he's gonna stay. And now I'm falling, falling into new arms, I'm all in. Finally had a breakthrough. Thank God there's no one like you. So I wasn't scared to lose you. Silly girl, what a fool. 'Cause now you're gone, I'm great. Oh, oh. I never thought I'd say it. Yeah, yeah. I'm light on my feet. It's like I'm a better me. V2.0 or 3. Yeah, yeah. A better me. For so long I wasn't happy and it showed. I hated that you never told me I was beautiful. I knew that you were right, but I was scared to be alone. Had to love myself enough to let you go. 'Cause now you're gone, I'm great. Oh, oh. I never thought I'd say it. Yeah, yeah. I'm light on my feet. It's like I'm a better me. V2.0 or 3. Yeah, yeah. A better me. Oh, oh. I never thought I'd say it. I'm light on my feet. It's like a better me. Version 2.0 or 3. Gotta love myself enough to let you go. 'Cause now you're gone, I'm great.
So ultimately, Motion Boom in default mode is the loudest. It even goes louder than Motion Plus when it's in its custom mode. Does it in quite a clean way. There's not a lot in it between my custom mode and default mode. And of course, I haven't really pushed this much in my EQ. There is a lot of headroom that you could push this even further. About half a dB up on Motion Plus in its custom mode, which is a couple of dB up on the Motion Plus in its default mode. Because of the strong mids on the Motion Plus in custom mode, it's got the biggest peak at 99.3, which is at 1 meter on that track. And in terms of RMS, actual power throughout the track, it is neck and neck with Motion Boom, default and custom mode. So you could make an argument that Motion Plus kind of does well, but remember, when it's pushed in its custom mode, it's not particularly clean. We are really stretching the limits of its bass, whereas it seems quite clean on the Motion Boom. I haven't really pushed it. And, you know, in deep bass, 50 hertz, 32 dB, we're like 10 decibels up in terms of the deep bass. 50 hertz is proper deep bass. So a good showing for Motion Boom there. In terms of a party speaker, you want it to go loud and you still want a beat, beat, beat. You want it to go loud and deep. The Motion Boom does do that, more so than the Motion Plus.
Yeah, I've got to say it. I've got to say it. I think, you know, when it comes to maximum volume, again, the Boom is the winner. When you push the Motion Plus, even, you know, or especially with its custom EQ, and you're pushing the bass, because there's a lot of bass reduction as you got the volume. So if you're trying to counter that and you add it yourself in the EQ, it can get very distorted. Not on all tracks, but if it's a bass heavy track, it's not brilliant. This is pretty clean. Now, I haven't really pushed that custom EQ, and maybe I'll do that another time and really see it. But even without pushing it, it's playing pretty clean. It's keeping hold of that bass. It's playing deep. It's impressive. I know the mid's a bit recessed. The detail's not there, and I'm having to push, you know, that 13 kilohertz and up to get any sort of clarity out of it at all. But it's a nice listen. You can go to maximum volume. It's a decent volume, going louder than the Motion Plus, which we already know holds its own against, you know, much bigger speakers. So doing really well. Now, I'm saying overall it's a winner, but with reservations. Now, personally, I can't really give up because of the way I listen. It's not just about a thump, thump, thump. I can't really do without that detail. In a long listen, I have that, you know, the full mids, the detail, and I can do without the deep. I like the deep bass, and it's not, it's verging on overblown, but it's just the right side of overblown. For me, just like the Extreme 3 was. But this is impressive. When you do a quick A/B, it's hard to go from the Motion Boom to the Motion Plus, because it's like I've turned off the bass. And then after a little while, your ears adjust. You're not quite aware of the loss of bass, and then you're getting the detail. When I'm playing the boom, you know, I'm always messing around with the EQ, trying to get a bit more detail out of it without losing that bottom end. So I like having both speakers. I think this is impressive for what it does. Am I going to suddenly say this is the world pound for pound budget champion? I don't know. Maybe it's a draw. I think it's a matter of taste, but maybe more people will like the Motion Plus for its detail, and maybe they will say this is a bit muddy. But I know a lot of you out there who are just looking for a party speaker. It's more than a party speaker, but if you can't do without the bottom end, then that is going to do it for you. That's going to be the winner. You know, it's not the overall package is what I'm trying to say, and you have to decide what is more important to you. But still, for 80 quid, I'm going to have to put this against the W King, but the W King for me, not balanced enough. Impressive that in the bass. Whereas this is balanced, I can sit down and have a decent listen. It's reasonably balanced. Yeah, I know I'm losing detail. I'm looking for more in the mids. But I can sit and enjoy it without just having the bass go, even though the bass is there. So I would say this is impressive. Not going to be for everybody, but maybe it's a halfway house between if you're someone who prefers the boom of the W King, you know, also around 80 quid or 70 quid, whatever it is, against the detail and the open sound of the Motion Plus. Maybe this does sit in the middle. Certainly good value for money. I'm saying it's 80 quid. Not really. I got it off eBay, 80 quid. Looks like $90 in the US. I'm not seeing it actually officially released in the UK. If they are around the same price, 80 quid, and you probably get it on a deal for maybe 70 quid when it's properly out. Compared to what we got not long ago, and that is brilliant value. Does it mean you're going to agree, say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about? Just listen to what I'm saying. The low end is impressive on this, but it's lacking the mids and the detail and the open sound of the Motion Plus. If you married these two and they had a baby, it would be the perfect speaker, assuming it's going to be still 80 quid. So, going to be obviously a lot more videos that I'm going to be doing with this speaker down the line. But in terms of this review, this overview, I hope you got something out of it, and I thank you for watching.